It's May 4th, 2023. A Swiss sailing yacht called the Champagne is crossing the Strait of Gibraltar. The water is calm. The crew is relaxed, 3 weeks into a delivery run they've made before. Then, something hits the hull. Not once, 3 times. The wheel spins out of the helmsman's hands, on its own, like something underneath the boat has taken hold of the rudder and is steering it now. Someone on deck sees the dorsal fins. 3 of them, black, tall, unmistakable. 45 minutes later, the crew is being pulled out of the water by the Spanish Coast Guard. The Champagne is gone, sunk in the Strait of Gibraltar shortly after midnight by 3 killer whales. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. For context, the animals responsible for this are not a species. They are not even a population. They are a specific, identifiable, and vanishingly small group of orcas. Fewer than 30 individuals that live off the coast of Spain and Portugal and follow the migration of Atlantic bluefin tuna between the Strait of Gibraltar and the open Atlantic. They are called the Iberian orcas, and in 2019, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature listed them as critically endangered. There are fewer of them alive than there are giant pandas. What nobody could explain, starting in May of 2020, was why they had started sinking boats. The first report came from the Strait of Gibraltar. A sailboat rammed repeatedly at the stern, its rudder disabled within minutes. It looked like an accident. Then it happened again. By the end of that year, researchers had logged 52 separate interactions. The next year, 197. The year after, 207. By 2026, the number had passed 500. Over 250 vessels damaged, 8 sunk to the bottom of the sea. Every year, the number got worse. Researchers who study these animals gave them a name, the Gladises, from Orcinus gladiator, the old Latin name for orca. One individual sits at the center of the story, an adult female. Researchers call her White Gladis. She has offspring. Her offspring were there too, watching, in the water, during some of the earliest recorded interactions. That detail is the one that made scientists uneasy. This wasn't one animal acting alone. It was being taught. What the orcas were actually doing, once researchers pieced it together from drone footage, hull damage reports, and eyewitness accounts, followed a method precise enough to look rehearsed. They approach from the stern. Almost always the stern, almost always undetected until the first impact. Their target is the rudder, not the hull, not the crew, the rudder specifically. They ram it, they bite it. In documented cases, they use their own bodies as levers, gripping the blade and rotating it until the boat spins in a full circle, out of control. Investigators from the Atlantic Orca Working Group have recovered rudders split down the middle, torn off entirely, bent at the stock where the metal meets the hull. One orca was filmed removing a rudder with its teeth alone. The boats being targeted share a profile, about 12 meters long, moving around 6 knots, a speed an orca matches without effort. Monohulled, large spade rudders. And here is the detail that unsettled sailors more than any other. Fighting back made it worse. Speeding up, turning hard, holding the wheel against the force, all of it seemed to provoke more contact, not less. The only thing that consistently worked was doing nothing, cutting the engine, waiting. The orcas would lose interest and leave. In 500 documented interactions across 6 years, not one human being was injured. So the question every marine biologist wanted answered was simple. Why disable the boat and stop there? There were 2 competing answers, and for a long time, neither one won. The first theory involved White Gladis directly. The hypothesis, at some point before 2020, she had a violent encounter with a boat, a collision, a tangled fishing line, a moment researchers described, carefully, as a critical moment of agony. According to this theory, she began treating rudders as a threat to neutralize, not out of revenge, but prevention, and she taught that response to the orcas around her. It was a compelling story. Most scientists remained skeptical of it. There was no direct evidence Gladis had ever been in such an encounter, and the idea of an orca teaching defensive retaliation to her family read, to many researchers, like a very human explanation grafted onto animal behavior that might be simpler than that. The second theory didn't involve trauma at all. It involved boredom. Orcas are among the most cognitively complex animals alive. They are known, in multiple populations around the world, to develop fads, specific elaborate behaviors that spread through a pod not because they serve any survival purpose, but because they are, in some sense, fun. In the 1980s, a pod in the Pacific Northwest started wearing dead salmon on their heads. It spread through the population. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Researchers watching the Iberian orcas noticed something that fit this pattern more than the trauma theory did. Once a rudder was broken and the boat was disabled, the orcas didn't attack further. They circled it, inspected it, then swam away. The way an animal behaves when a game has ended, not when a threat has been eliminated. One expert studying the behavior put it simply: there aren't many objects in the open ocean for an orca to interact with. A 12-meter rudder, vibrating under pressure, snapping audibly when pushed hard enough. For an animal built for stimulation and problem solving, that might be the most interesting object it encounters all year. By 2023, the number of individual orcas identified in direct contact with vessels had grown from 9 to 15. 2 of them, during the Champagne incident, were juveniles, young enough that they weren't inventing the technique, they were copying it. This is how the behavior moves. It doesn't require every orca to discover it independently. It requires one animal to start it and the rest of the pod to watch. And that is the detail that stopped researchers from treating this as a curiosity. Because the Iberian orca population numbers fewer than 30 individuals total, if this behavior becomes a permanent part of how this pod teaches its young, passed down the way hunting techniques and vocal dialects are passed down in other orca populations, then it is no longer a passing fad. It is culture. And once it's culture, it doesn't go away on its own. Here is where the story runs into a problem that has no clean solution. The Iberian orcas are protected. Under Spanish and Portuguese law, harming or deliberately deterring one is illegal, and given how few of them remain, doing so could meaningfully damage a population already close to disappearing entirely, which means that when a pod disables a boat mid-crossing, there is no legal countermeasure available to the crew, not a lethal one, not even reliably a non-lethal one. The only guidance maritime authorities can currently offer is to slow down, cut the engine, and wait for the animals to lose interest. Organizations like the GTOA and the CIRCE Research Group are tracking every reported interaction in real time, testing acoustic deterrents, publishing advisories for the seasons and routes where contact is most likely. None of it has stopped the number from climbing. Go back to the Strait of Gibraltar, May 2023. The Champagne's crew in the water, watching their boat disappear beneath the surface. What they experienced wasn't a random predator encounter, and it wasn't an attack in the way that word usually means. It was a small, endangered population of the ocean's most intelligent animals, testing an object they found interesting, teaching each other how to do it, and getting better at it every year since. The great white shark spent decades as the animal sailors feared most in these waters. Off the coast of Iberia, that fear has been replaced by something stranger. Not a predator hunted, but an intelligent, social, critically endangered animal that found something to do with its time and passed it on to its children. Nobody knows yet whether this fades the way the salmon hats did, or whether it's the new, permanent shape of what it means to sail these waters. The orcas are still out there, the number is still climbing, and somewhere in the Strait of Gibraltar right now, a calf that wasn't even born in 2020 is learning how to break a rudder from a mother who already knows how. If you want the next story like this one, the ones where the ocean does something nobody predicted, subscribe, because this isn't the last time an animal is going to rewrite the rules while we're still arguing about why.